Then I took a smidge and applied it down there.
This one's wife. Lost or free in NYC. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Harry is in New York, and this provides us with an opportunity to analyse his behaviour as a victim of the narcissist and understand more about the narcissistic dynamic now that he is having a period of time away from his handler. Maria Chiorando writes for the Mail, Prince Harry showed possible signs of struggling as he attended a dinner organised by the World Health Organization in New York this weekend. The Duke of Sussex was without his wife, this one's wife, at the dinner held to honour survivors of childhood violence. However, he wasn't the only royal in attendance, as he shared a sweet moment with Queen Matilda of Belgium. Other people there were Forrest Whitaker, several UN agency heads, and other dignitaries. According to body language expert Judy James, the Duke of Sussex appeared to show signs that he is struggling with his visible demotion. One of the photographs from the event shows King Charles's youngest son, I think you mean younger son, greeting Queen Matilda. Describing the embrace, James told the Mail, it's Matilda adopting the body language signals of royal rank and status here, while Harry shows possible signs of struggling with his visible demotion. He greets the Belgian Queen like family, using a warm eye gaze on her face, while extending his right hand to clasp her on her upper arm, creating what looks like a rather sweet moment of tactile affection. Well, you can see from the pictures. And what do you read into it? Well, first of all, I wouldn't necessarily say that he is particularly well acquainted with Queen Matilda, and a good starting point for Harry would be if he actually smartened up. Yes, he's wearing a suit and a shirt, but what's wrong with doing up the buttons and making sure that he's wearing a tie? One of the other gentlemen that is there is doing so. Other people that were in attendance were wearing ties. But some might say, well, at the end of the day, you don't need to be formal, but it is a formal event. He's going to a dinner. He's not popping to McDonald's for a quarter-pounder. It ought to look smarter. After all, whilst he may not be necessarily representing the United Kingdom, he is still a prince, and some standards ought to be maintained. Furthermore, sort your hair out. Have a proper trim. It looks like a pot noodle awaiting the application of boiling water. Furthermore, what do you denote from the way that Harry has behaved? Ordinarily, Harry, having been brought up with meeting dignitaries and making public appearances, would have engaged in a firm handshake and a pleasant exchange. But these days, as a consequence of the influence of the narcissist wife, he repeatedly goes in for the hug, being all touchy-feely. And he's been conditioned to do that as part of her asserting control over him. What she does in causing him to go in for the hugs is essentially try to deprogram him from the way that he has been brought up to greet people. She does this under the auspices of suggesting that a handshake is stuffy, and that because she is a hugger, a face hugger, like the alien, but she deems that that's informal and friendlier. But you all know, as a consequence of the fact that she is a narcissist, what's actually going on is that she is asserting control, not failing to recognise boundaries and showing a sense of entitlement in going in to hug people, whether they like it or not. She attempts to manage her facade by showing people, look, I'm kind, I'm a hugger. And Harry has been taught to behave in the same way, thus jettisoning the way that he would ordinarily greet people and engaging in this alternative informal method as instructed by his wife. And it's interesting, although he didn't hug Queen Matilda, as far as I can see at least, he didn't engage in the shaking of a hand. Now, there'll be some that will say, well, who cares? What does it matter, the way that he greets her? But with these matters, a certain degree of courtesy and respect is appropriate, particularly with somebody that you don't know that well. And it demonstrates, again, how far Harry has fallen, is the fact that he turns up not looking particularly smart, and he engages in this kind of greeting. Now, the body expert suggests that this shows that he is struggling. Do you think that he's struggling? Or do you think, for instance, that he looks like he's on something? I have to say, one of the pictures where he's staring, one wonders if he's stoned or if he's been on the toot. More about that later on in a separate video. But I'd be interested in your thoughts. The fact is, this looks to me like an individual who's rather crumpled, that he looks ill at ease. As you'll see from the various pictures that are presented, the other people that are there are largely dressed smartly, whereas Harry's there showing off his necklace. I wonder if it's the one that, "He broke my necklace," when he had his supposed altercation with Prince William. There is the suggestion that Harry is sporting something of a haunted look. You might think that he's under the influence, or it is a haunted look that's occurred. The article continues to explain that officials from countries like Sweden, Colombia, Zimbabwe, Georgia, Canada, Iceland, and Brazil were also present, as were survivors of child abuse, to discuss the important issue at the event on Sunday. All are in New York for the UN General Assembly, which is set to kick off on Monday morning in Manhattan. Judy James stated that while Matilda's face appears crinkled in a reciprocal smile, Harry appeared more keen, bending in towards her. She seems to keep a more upright posture, while her right hand on Harry's shoulder looks really elegant and polite. She also added, as Harry and Matilda walk in a group, it's Harry who seems to be walking behind, to emphasise the fact that he's no longer the only royal in the room in New York. Well, this might just be good manners that he's letting the lady go first, but also it might be demonstrative of, again, conditioning, as invariably his wife always walks in front of him. We know why that is. She has to be front and centre. She has to be the important one in order to pursue the prime aims. What is interesting is Harry appears looking rather crumpled, rather dishevelled, not particularly on top of things. And that might be demonstrative of the fact that he's essentially had the narc bomb dropped on him before he came here. It is commonly the case, and this all depends on whether this one's wife sanctioned his attendance in New York and London, or whether there was a fight about it. But it is usually common that where you do something as the intimate partner primary source in particular, that takes you away from the immediate proximate control of a narcissist, the narcissist will cause trouble in order to make life difficult for you. Sometimes it's by way of a preventative hoover to stop you going. In other instances, even though the narcissist may not be able to stop you from going, it's done to make you feel guilty, to spoil your enjoyment of the event, because you're left worrying about how the narcissist is reacting, whether you're going to be receiving annoying text messages criticizing you, whether you're going to be bombarded with calls where the narcissist is shouting and screaming at you, meaning that you can't really focus on what it is that you've gone to. Those of you who've been involved with the narcissist will be fully familiar with the battle of going out, whereby the fact that you might be going out with friends or colleagues and the narcissist is not, that they make life very difficult for you before you go, either in the expectation of you deciding it's too much like hard work, I won't go, thus you're brought under control, or essentially queering the pitch for you so you don't really enjoy your evening and perhaps come home earlier. It's all part of the narcissist's lack of emotional empathy for you. And if this was a trip where Harry was asserting a degree of independence, and this one's wife didn't want him to go, there's every possibility that she will have engaged in similar behaviour by dropping the narc bomb beforehand in order to try and emotionally blackmail him into not going. And continuing to devalue him, this is the product. A dishevelled, somewhat out-of-it-looking prince who turns up not wearing a tie and is being particularly informal at an event where once upon a time he would be much more smartly dressed and will behave in a different manner altogether. Even if he's under the influence of something, and of course there's no direct evidence that that's the case, that could also be indicative of his response to the way that he's being treated. I'll be addressing that in a separate video. Accordingly, what we see here is an individual who doesn't necessarily look particularly that free from this one's wife. Yes, she's not there, but he looks rather like a lost soul, that he's not the person that he once was. That in part has been picked up by the apparent body expert, but also a simple viewing of the pictures demonstrates to you that this individual, Harry, looks rather lost, and this is a product of the devaluation that he's been experiencing as a consequence of his entanglement with this one's wife. What do you think? Do you think Harry has broken free and is enjoying himself in New York City? Or do you think that you're looking at a rather lost individual that is showing the burnout that occurs from as a consequence of his involvement with a narcissist, that he has that haunted luck because he's almost like a shell-shocked survivor? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.